Hi, and welcome. You're listening to the X22 Report. My name is Dave, and this is episode 1291B, and today's date is May 28th, 2017, and the title of the episode is Trump is about to do something, and the world is about to change. Now, before I get started, I just want to make an announcement. On Saturday, I uploaded an interview with Charles Hugh Smith. It is on the X22 Report Spotlight YouTube channel. So if you go over to YouTube and you type in X22 Report Spotlight, it will bring you right to the video. Or you can come over to the X22Report.com site, scroll down a little bit, look over to your right-hand side, you'll see the video there. Or you can go to newssentinel.com, same thing, scroll down a little bit, look over to your right-hand side, and you can play the video right on the site. Let's get into the economic collapse, political and geopolitical news. Now, over this long holiday weekend, we can see that the corporate media, well, they're not letting up. The deep state is not letting up. And we have to remember the corporate media is the mouthpiece for the deep state. Well, they're pushing out the idea that Jarred Kushner, and this is the president's son-in-law, well, he was dealing with the Russians, that he was talking to the Russians and they're looking for Russian collusion. This is what they've been doing for quite a while. And they're trying to get at Trump any which way they possibly can. And during this holiday season, they came out with this blockbuster announcement stating that Kushner sought secret back channels with Moscow. And we have to remember something very important. During a transition period, the transition team will speak to different foreign leaders. This is normal practice. And yes, were they looking for secure communication channels between the Trump transition team and Russia and probably many other countries? Of course they were. Obama did it. Other presidents have done it. So think about this. After Trump won the election, Kushner began discussions with the U.S. representative and another world superpower to set up the back-channel communications that are standard when any new president is elected. And we're looking at this, and McMaster's is out there saying this is really a non-story because, as they state themselves, it is common for senior advisors of a newly elected president to be in contact with foreign leaders and officials. And this is stated actually in the article. Of course, it's buried down deep in it, so you just read the headline, and they're trying to, basically push the agenda forward and keep this alive over this long weekend, saying that he's not concerned about any back-channel communication. He goes, we have back-channel communications with a number of countries. So generally speaking about back-channel communication, it allows you to do so in a discreet manner. And you have to remember, they knew they were being spied upon. They knew that there were ears everywhere. Of course, we know the White House is bugged. And what the administration was doing is they were creating a back channel to basically sidestep the deep state from eavesdropping on their conversation. That's really what was happening. Actually, if we go back in time, Obama campaign, they opened a back channel to Iran. But of course, that's okay because it's Obama and he is part of the deep state system. So the corporate media really doesn't report on anything like this. And all other presidents have done the same exact thing. What they're doing is they're keeping the headlines out there, throwing out more headlines. And it really does sound like, oh, wow, they have this secure back channel. But this is normal for administration. They're just doing it over the long weekend to keep this story out there and to keep their Russian collusion agenda continually pushing forward, even though they have no evidence whatsoever. Now, as we know, Trump was out in the Middle East. He was in Brussels, and he was at the G7 meeting. And it looks like he's refusing to back the climate deal. And it looks like there was no breakthrough. All the other countries are on board with the Paris climate deal. And Merkel was actually very furious about the whole entire situation. She said the whole discussion about climate has been difficult, or rather very unsatisfactory. This is coming from Merkel. There is right now no agreement, but we've made very clear that we are not moving away from our position. Now, Trump has informed multiple individuals, including the EPA administration's Scott Pruitt, that he intends to remove the United States from the Paris Climate Agreement. He also said he's going to make his decision next week on it. And we have to remember what this whole deal is about. Many people think, yes, it's because of global warming or climate change, reducing pollution, and everything like that. Think back on what the globalists wanted to do. They had the TPP, and to make the world as one, they needed to bring countries down to a certain level. They were bringing the United States down to a third world status, so this way workers from other countries could come into this country and actually work. Same thing with regulations. To make the globalist plan work, they needed to have every single country on the same platform with regulations. Everyone had to be equal across the board. And this is what this whole climate change, or they changed it from global warming to climate change, because they realized, well, the Earth isn't really warming. It's actually cooling right now. But of course, and their numbers are completely fake, phony, and false. This is why they can't present it to Congress, and this is why they keep saying the science is settled. Science is never settled. Science is always looked at, it's prodded, and you have to continually prove it. And each time someone proves it, someone else proves it to make sure that is proved. And once you do that, then yes, it looks pretty darn good. And then someone else will come along and say, well, wait a minute, there was a mistake, there was a miscalculation. So it's never settled. And what we're seeing right now is this was part of a huge agenda, and this worked along the TPP, the TTIP, and the rest, because they had to bring everyone to a certain level, and they had to control regulations across the board to make this a one world government, a one world currency, a one world system. And that is changing now. Now, if Trump does follow through on this, it's going to change everything, because their entire globalist system would then break down. And again, once they've done that, once they installed the climate change treaty and started pushing forward the regulations, then they were going to bring up the carbon tax. They were going to start taxing people to bring down the debt. And this was all part of their system, but it is completely breaking apart. And was this going to help everyone? No, this was not going to help them. This was going to help the upper 1%, the central banks, the corporations, the elites. That's who it was going to help. The rest, we were going to be in a third world status. Pollution wasn't going to go away. The climate wasn't going to be changed. And they were just going to suck more and more dollars from you, or euros, or whatever currency we were going to be on. Now, there's reports coming out from the corporate media that the U.S. has deployed a third aircraft carrier. We understand the USS Carl Vinson is in the vicinity. We also understand that the USS Ronald Reagan is coming in, but that's going to replace the Vinson. The Vinson is eventually going to leave. Now they're saying the USS Nimitz is expected to be on its way right into this area where North Korea is with the other aircraft carriers, and they're saying we're going to have 3 aircraft carriers there. Well, not really, because the Ronald Reagan's going to be there, the Vincent's going to be leaving, and the Nimitz, well, that has been under repairs, and has been under repairs for 20 months, and they were modernizing it, and they completed it in October, and they spent the last couple of months undergoing training and inspections in preparation for deployment. So where's this aircraft carrier going? Well, it is going to the Western Pacific for 6 months, and it's visiting the Middle East. It's going through the Asia Pacific. So it's not going directly to North Korea like the corporate media wants us to believe. Now, Trump was out in the Middle East, and he was making deals there. Now, this was the cover story to what his real agenda was, because he was letting these nations know. One was the G7, Saudi Arabia. Remember, Saudi Arabia was put onto the petrodollar. Kissinger visited Saudi Arabia and other Middle Eastern countries to set up this entire system. Well, the opposite is happening right now. And everyone's like talking about the arms deal that Trump set up. He used this as a cover story. The Saudi arms deal was great for headlines about the $110 billion in defense equipment and services, but and of course it was the $350 billion in sales over the next 10 years. Policy analyst William Hartung noted that many of the items mentioned as part of the package had already been offered to Saudi Arabia during the Obama administration, including the Patriot missile defense system, multi-mission surface combatants, attack and transport helicopters, artillery systems, and the value of these offers already on the books before Trump stepped into the Oval Office. What Trump did, he used this as a cover story. The corporate media picked up on that. What he did behind the scenes was something completely different. It was the Belt and Road, setting up trade, letting all these countries know it's coming to an end. Things are changing right now. And this is what he was using as a cover story. So we can see things are breaking down now. If all this is followed through on, the plan is going to come out in the open eventually. But a lot of this stuff is happening behind the scenes. We see that the Pentagon, they're out there saying that they're going to mark their first attempt to shoot down an intercontinental ballistic missile in flight. This is going to simulate North Korea attack on the United States when they don't even have a missile that can reach the United States right now. But they're making it look good and making everyone afraid, saying, look, if there's an intercontinental missile coming in, we can protect the country. And it looks like what the deep state wants to do at this point is they want to show everyone that, listen, we can protect the United States if we go in to North Korea and we invade. And it looks like this is what they're trying to do. Now, this system, known as the ground-based mid-course defense system, has been compared to hitting a bullet with a bullet, or more precisely, involves hitting a rocket with a rocket that launches another rocket. And this is going to be done from an underground silo at Vandenberg Air Force Base in California. And the missile is going to fly towards the Marshall Islands. There's going to be another missile that is going to intercept it. And, of course, we're going to have to see how this all plays out. But I do believe that this is being used to show that, listen, if we go into North Korea and we have regime change and they try to fire off a nuclear weapon or a ballistic missile at the United States is safe. So let us go into North Korea and have regime change. We see ISIS commanders, well, they are now moving from the Islamic State. They're going over to the moderate rebels. We see this happening in Al Tanf and many other areas because the Islamic State, they're pretty much finished. So they're going back to the moderate rebel or the Syrian Democratic Forces or whatever name they have for them today. But we can see this is exactly what they're doing. Syria has demanded an immediate halt to U.S.-led airstrikes after another 35 civilians were killed by coalition strikes. And they wrote a letter to the UN saying that these strikes create chaos, they help the terrorists launch attacks against government troops, and in no way are they helping get rid of the terrorist groups. And we know this for a very long time, that the deep state, they've been supporting the terrorist groups. They fund the terrorist groups. And many countries are calling the United States out on this. It's China, it's Russia, it's the Philippines, and we can see, and Syria. We're looking at Iran and many other, even Iraq is saying it. And we can see that a lot of countries are starting to realize what is happening here. And they're just coming out and calling out the coalition forces, the deep state, on what they've really been up to. We see that the Islamic State, well, they're urging an all-out war on the West for Ramadan. And of course, they're saying, attack everyone, attack them in their homes. And it looks like this might be part of the deep state plan, because when things start to deteriorate, once they are losing their grip, they're going to resort to a major event. And this is something that we should expect, because we can see right now their plans behind the scenes. The deep state is trying to get us into war, and if everything doesn't go the way they want, they're going to push an event. And we can see that at every turn, they are being stopped. They don't have any evidence of Russian collusion. They're trying to get rid of Trump by impeachment or looking at his mental stability. Or if that all doesn't work, they will try an assassination. And we can see they're doing everything and anything to hold on to their power. Listen, everyone, thanks a lot for listening. Be well, be safe, and especially be prepared. Thanks a lot.